Hello everyone and welcome to this second video in our lockdown series. My name's Sarah Wimsett and I'm a solicitor in the employment team and I'm joined by my colleague Abigail Brightwell. So today we're going to be having a look at caring responsibilities, which is a really important topic and particularly in this current lockdown and where many of us are finding that we have caring responsibilities either that we didn't have before or that we now have in a different way. The first point I wanted to have a look at was furlough leave. Now, in the most recent government guidance, it does specifically refer to furlough leave for those with caring responsibilities and says that for those that are unable to work, including working from home or having to work reduced hours, then they may be eligible for furlough leave if they have caring responsibilities resulting from coronavirus. Now, this may be, for example, because schools are closed or their childmind's no longer working, but it could also include if they're caring for a vulnerable individual in their home. Now, furlough leave is one option open to employers. Obviously, it's the employer's decision which employees they put on furlough leave, and it obviously needs to be considered taking into account the needs of the business as well as individual circumstance. Abby, there are other options open to employers who aren't putting employees on furlough leave. What do those look like?
Yes, absolutely. Furlough leave is not going to be suitable for all employees, and there are other forms of statutory leave available for staff who might not be on furlough leave. So these include parental leave. Now, this is an unpaid form of statutory leave. Eligible employees are entitled to take up to 18 weeks leave for each child up to their 18th birthday. They are limited to taking 4 weeks in a year. They can take more if the employer is in agreement, and the leave has to be taken in blocks of a whole week. So it could be 1 week or 2 weeks. The 4 weeks don't necessarily need to be all taken at once. So parental leave is an option. There's also another form of statutory leave called time off for dependents. Again, this is an unpaid form of leave, and it covers children and other dependents. So, for example, parents or partners or somebody who depends upon the employee for care could be covered by this form of leave. Now, it's usually taken in cases where it's necessary to deal with an unexpected disruption to your normal caring arrangements. So it's usually seen as a more of a shorter term form of leave in order to organise that care. But in the current circumstances, it could perhaps be used for more longer leave. There's no limit on how much can be taken. It just needs to be reasonable and necessary. So that's another form of leave to bear in mind. And there's also holiday annual leave. So employees could be asked to take annual leave or could request to take annual leave to cover childcare or other caring commitments. The only thing I'd say in relation to annual leave is to be aware of notice requirements, whether these are in the contract or if the contract is silent under statute. It's probably also bearing in mind that there was a new form of leave introduced in April last year. Some employers may have missed it with everything else that was going on, and that was the introduction of parental bereavement leave. Now, eligible parents are entitled to up to 2 weeks leave and pay in certain circumstances, and it can be combined with other types of statutory leave. There's also flexible working, Sarah. Is that something that you've been seeing more queries on or dealing with more recently?
Yeah, I think flexible working is a good point, Abby, because that's obviously something that for many people, almost all of us are working from home now. And Catherine and Veronica's video, which was released last week in this series, focused very much on how now home working is what the government are saying people should be doing, as I'd say, for very few exceptional circumstances. So yeah, flexible working is really important, particularly as different types of leave aren't always feasible. Obviously, for many people, it's going to be about the hours they work. It might be helpful for some people to have compressed hours and to change the shifts they're working, for example. And again, it's really important that employers bear in mind the individual specific circumstances. Obviously, there is a statutory process to be going through for flexible working, where you have to have 26 weeks service in order to do that and can't have brought a similar request within the last 12 months. But in the current circumstances, employers are likely to want to be taking a much more informal approach rather than going down that formal procedure, because many of these kind of requests that people are having are going to be quite informal and are going to be quite temporary, or what we all hope is going to be temporary. And we certainly don't want this going on too much longer. So that's really important. It's important that employers do take that flexible approach. It is important to bear in mind people's mental health at the same time, because obviously working flexibly and having competing interests between work and home life at the moment can be really difficult. So I think now's a good time for employers to be reminding their employees where they can get help from if they have helplines and things for people to call. And I think that's really important at the moment. But yeah, certainly flexible working and employers to be sort of open in communication around flexible working, I think is really important at the moment. And if they do agree changes, obviously making sure that those are reviewed so that they do suit both parties going forward. Abby, I know you've been homeschooling. How's it been going?
Yes, it's been, I think I'll speak for many when I say it's a challenge. It's difficult trying to fit homeschooling commitments around work. I think that really comes back to your point about employers having flexibility, Sarah, because we are in a very unique situation. We've not been here before, where schools have been closed and we're not allowed to go to our normal places of work. And I think many employers are taking that common sense approach and being very flexible, allowing employees to vary their working hours or their working patterns to fit things in around the homeschooling. As you say, that's really important. I feel very fortunate that Braishers have taken a very flexible approach, very supportive, very aware that a number of staff do have homeschooling commitments. Some things that I've found that have helped me sort of juggle between work and home have been keeping organised, making sure I know what's coming up the days ahead. That's really helped. And also keeping communication open within the team. We're lucky to have a very supportive team here. And we all sort of swap stories about how the homeschooling's going. We check in on each other. We make sure everyone's aware of our workloads and ask for help if we need to. So I think in terms of sort of top tips for employers and how they might be able to support employees who do have homeschooling or other caring responsibilities, I think knowing what leave is available and knowing what options they can give staff is really important. Having that regular communication and touch base, if it's sort of checking in on employees, make sure they're managing. Sometimes they may not speak up. Training for managers, that might be something that could be put in place, whether it's a refresh on your policies to make sure you're aware of what they say in terms of different sorts of leave, or looking at some wellbeing initiatives to support staff. Looking at workloads, are realistic expectations being put in place in the current circumstances? And also just being aware of possible discrimination risks and not coming to assumptions about who might be shouldering the homeschooling and caring responsibilities at home.
Yeah, that's really useful. Thank you, Abby. Well, I hope you found this discussion really helpful, a helpful reminder of the different things to think about with caring responsibilities. Thank you very much for joining us and for listening in on this. And do keep your eye out for future videos in this series on lockdown.